is Smart Consulting Sourcing, the only podcast about consulting procurement or how to buy consulting services. You'll get tips on how to use consulting, buy consulting, and managing the consulting. And now your host, Ellen Lafitte.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Smart Consulting Sourcing, the only podcast about consulting procurement. I am Ellen, and today is the 5th episode of a series, How to Buy Consulting Services Like a Pro. I'm going to answer the question, where to get started on an RFP. So the request for information is a key technique for exploring the consulting industry and learning about the services available. And while brain picking free consultation might be useful at times, it's best used sparingly and for short bursts. Project at the ideation phase may need an RFP procedure or internal workshop to define the issue to be solved. When the problem is defined, a request for a proposal can and should be drafted. So when you're not sure about what approach to use, an option is to first send out RFIs to a large pool of consulting firms, and in a second round, send out RFPs to a smaller group of potential consulting firms. Whenever possible, limit the project scope to the must-have, but give the submitters some leeway to be creative. This will help keep your RFP process on track. And keep in mind too that limiting the number of consultants invited at each stage can help speed up the process overall and make sure they will submit their best proposal. So check out last week's episode of Smart Consulting Sourcing. Our podcast is available on all your favorite platforms, including Spotify, iTunes, and YouTube. And if you'd rather read than listen or watch, the entire transcript is available in the thought leadership section of our website, consultingquest.com. Before diving into the technical aspects of writing an RFP, which will be next week, let's cover a few crucial elements vital to any successful RFP. Although these prerequisites may appear basic, they are the foundation for drafting and submitting high-impact RFPs, so don't overlook them. First thing first, start with the right team. So there are many reasons why this is an important step in writing an RFP. Let's take a step back for a minute, shall we? When we write an RFP, our goal is usually to find external support to solve a problem. And we all agree that the main purpose is to find a solution. Now we want a solution that works, sticks on the long run, and doesn't create a problem of its own, correct? So now let me break down what we just agreed into 3 objectives. We want a solution that works, and it means finding the right consultants that will bring impact and value. We want a solution that sticks in the long run, means that we will manage the change from the very start of the project to ensure the main stakeholders are on board. And finally, a solution that doesn't create problems means that we will stick to the budget, respect company policies and processes, get the necessary approvals, manage the project, and manage the contract. And who can help make sure we meet those 3 goals I just listed? So first, we must involve those who are most familiar with the project subject matter. And I mean by that, the project manager, who will be in charge of the project's day-to-day operations, as well as the project owner, who owns the budget and is accountable to the organization. We also need the project to be successful, so we must include the key stakeholders if we follow good project management and change management practices. Those will be affected by the project, but aren't part of the project sponsors division, department, or business unit. Last week we discussed how stakeholders are pivotal in determining the success of a project, and they can make it or break it. So we also included the RFP process is an excellent chance to commence selling your project to your teams and set off on the quest. So don't overlook this opportunity. And last but not least, we want the project and by extension, the sourcing process to be seamless and compliant. And the procurement department must be involved as well as the finance and strategy departments if the project is particularly large or strategic. And involving them from the start will save you time and energy in the long run. So assembled before us are all the right people representing both business lines and procurement. Now that everyone is in the attendance, let's assign tasks and get to work, right? So the business lines are tasked with defining the needs, articulating the context and the problem to solve, and relaying expected outcomes. And although procurement is responsible for developing and formalizing requirements in an RFP document, it's ultimately up to business lines to validate its content. This can be seen as a collaborative process between both parties involved, right? Now let's focus on the principal responsibility of procurement for a moment. Despite being expected to lead, our job is actually more about guiding and facilitating. We ensure that every step in the process is compliant with company policies and processes. We remind people when steps must be taken, assist businesses with creating goals and objectives for projects, as well as clearly communicate desired outcomes. So it's important to ask questions here and challenge ideas. However, we must also remember that they are knowledgeable in their own right. Let's us use our influence positively. Let's be influencers. You don't need to upload YouTube videos or TikTok dances. All it takes is just being a positive force for change, inspiring creativity and generating ideas. All right? How does that sound? So now we have the perfect team that knows what to do. So how can we create an effective request for proposal? Let me give you 4 words: clear, realistic, simple, and formalized. These are all characteristics of a superior RFP. Your RFP must be clear, concise, and accurate. Only include the details that are absolutely necessary to describe your project so it can be understood at a glance by newcomers. Make sure you specify deadlines and expected results as well. And if your project is complicated, opt for an additional briefing step between sending the RFP and receiving the first proposal instead of writing a lengthy document. I have seen 10-page RFPs for a simple strategy project. This is such a waste of time and energy. So next, your RFP needs to be realistic. So I get it, you have ambitions for your organization, but you also need the consulting firm to be able to make it happen for you. That is the A in SPOT objective, right? It's attainable. And if you're not sure about the feasibility of your project, you can also organize a short RFI round with a couple of consulting firms and test the waters, right? So now let's talk about simple. Even if you're a big fan of Marcel Proust, try to control your lyrical musing right to an RFP. For if Proust's name isn't ringing a bell, allow me to introduce to you. He's a renowned French author, and his works are infamously known among French school students for their lengthy sentences. And believe it or not, I once had the unique opportunity to view an authentic Proust manuscript while my mother was employed as a curator at the National Library in Paris. And it contained pages that were individually pasted and added in small notebooks with some sheets reaching up to 1 meter in length when completely unfolded. That was incredible. But let's go back to RFP. Clarity often walks hand to hand with simplicity. Moreover, when you collaborate with global companies, it's likely that the expert examining your RFP isn't a native speaker. Despite being fluent in the language, they could struggle to understand uncommon vocabulary or complicated syntax. And finally, it's essential to formalize your RFP. As I previously mentioned, an RFP serves as a reference for the consulting firms you bring in on the project. There are countless potential solutions that could address any given problem. By formulating and detailing what exactly you need from them and laying out expectations accordingly, you will ensure that all involved parties stay laser focused on your goals. So let's switch our mindset. Instead of seeing the process as finding a supplier, look at it from an innovative perspective. And I'm talking to your procurement professionals. If you're with us today, don't be held back by traditional RFPs, and remember that this isn't all about making purchases. It's really about problem solving for your company. So take a fresh approach to the challenge and let creativity take center stage in overcoming obstacles. So let the consulting firm know about the why, what, who details of your company. Give them the big picture. Provide all the information that will enable them to understand what your company is about, not just the problem to solve or the department to help. And also give where you stand and what you have done before. Context is key in framing the solutions in consulting. Reveal a bit of you, and if you're concerned about confidentiality, then sign an NDA. No better. Always sign an NDA before you give any information about your project. Think of it like setting up speed dating. Give them just enough information for both parties involved so they can determine if there might be something special between you two, right? So pay attention to what I'm about to say. Be open-minded and embrace creative solutions. Even though we all know that you, the former consultant to an executive, can fully complete this project on your own, well, guess what? You're not going to. Another consultant is taking charge instead of you, and he's likely to have an alternate strategy. That doesn't mean it won't be successful. And if you don't trust their methodology, then simply don't hire them for the job. It's just like sharing domestic duties with your partner. It's when you must be okay that they will do it differently than you. Otherwise, you'll end up doing all the tasks by yourself. Maman, this is what's the best advice I ever received. Thank you again. So in crafting your RFP, provide sufficient information to steer potential consulting providers in the right direction while still allowing them enough flexibility to develop a unique and original solution that goes beyond what you expect. And focusing on procurement once more, when you are helping to create an RFP for consulting services, be sure that the consultants have all the information they need to generate a proposal that answers 3 critical questions. First, do these consultants understand our challenges? Second, are these consultants capable of tackling it? And third, will we collaborate well with them? And so we come to the end of our conversation. Time flies when you're having fun. Before I know it, my time is up. So let's conclude, shall we? And ready for the takeaways? So for a successful request for proposal, get together the appropriate team by including project managers, project sponsors, key stakeholders, procurement leaders, and finance and strategy if the project is strategic or important. When business lines are in charge of defining the needs and expected outcomes, procurement is in charge of developing requirements that are compliant with policies and processes. So develop a successful request for proposal that is clear, realistic, simple, and formalized. Include only the necessary details, specify deadlines and expected results, make sure it's attainable, opt for a briefing step when it is complicated, and use straightforward language. Make sure you include enough information for the consulting firms to understand your challenges and goals, faced by your company, and what you expect from the project. Embrace innovative approaches to problems while maintaining an open mind and creative spirit. Well, that's the end of our session today, but don't fret, because next week we'll finally delve right into the nitty-gritty details of crafting an RFP. And I'm sure you're ecstatic to find out what goes into it and how to create a successful one from start to finish. So join us as we'll let you in on all the secrets behind writing a compelling RFP for consulting. Till then, stay safe and happy sourcing. And if you have any questions regarding today's topic or any consulting procurement related topic, remember you can always contact me on LinkedIn or by email, because I'm always game for a chat. Bye, and see you next week. Au revoir.
You've been listening to Smart Consulting Sourcing, the only podcast about consulting procurement. We hope you enjoyed the show. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, hit the website at consultingquest.com. Find us on LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. For questions and comments, send an email to ellen.lafitte@consultingquest.com. See you next time.